this side where it needs to be. It's a little sloppier than I would like. Got tails laid out. Tails. The pin here and another pin, I believe. And I gotta make one more pin beam too. Measure twice, cut once. Sometimes 3 times. Measure 3 times, cut once. This is a shortcut pencil, I believe. It's off. Much better. So I eyeballed that. It does not look incredibly even. That 1-inch mark is slightly off. Probably 2 millimeters off on that, and you just don't have the tolerance to be able to make a mistake of a couple millimeters with these. You got to get everything perfect. That's better. Laid out tail, got a pin here to cut, and I got one more beam of pins. So we got a tail laid out here, a tail laid out here. I'm gonna show you how to cut those. They're a little tougher, but if you're here, welcome. I haven't looked at my numbers, so let's take a look. Acknowledge anyone who's here. Welcome, welcome. We're building dovetail boxes. I'm gonna build a drawer, but pretty soon we're gonna build a bed, and we'll probably build several tables. Thank you, Michigan, for being here. Kaya, Orchata, you have dull chisels. So do I. I've got dull chisels too. Some of the ones you see on that rack right there need to be sharpened, and that's probably a whole thing on its own just to sharpen those chisels. So welcome to the live. I'm glad to have you. That was one thing I was going to talk about. I think it was Kai who said something about the dull chisels. That was one thing I wanted to talk about, is how you see the chisels up there. Not all of those are in good shape. They've been used a lot. I built at least 5 beds with these chisels here, and some of these I've never used, like these bigger beveled chisels. I don't use those that often, but definitely these mortise chisels, I use those quite a bit. Anyway, back to this. We're gonna cut this tail, or this pin, because we have pins shaped like kind of like a trapezoid. We're gonna cut it with the rip cutting part of this saw here. Even this dovetail here looks a little bit off center, and we can't do that. So like this, that's slightly beyond an inch, and I can't. So I don't like that layout particularly. Must have done it when I was impatient. That's right on an inch now. Make sure my protractor is set to 60 degrees. It's gonna change all of these too. Like, all gotta be changed. It's too far. like that. This is why they tell you measure twice, cut once. Because if I was to cut that, I would waste all that wood. Somehow, probably my eyesight, but somehow these marks were not right at an inch. This one looks good now, but it's probably just like a millimeter to the right of that, like right there. Wow, that made a huge difference. Still puzzled about that. The angle's off. Good, much better there. All right, now we're good. Get rid of all those edge marks. Quite a bit outside that line on this side. It's just in my eyesight. Sorry if I'm a little on the outside, but that cut is not particularly straight. Not happy with that one. I don't love this pull saw either. It's just not. I'll probably cut these with a bandsaw over this razor saw, which I got from Harbor Freight. So it's not a great, this is not a great pull saw, which I've experienced. It's just very inaccurate. Doesn't want to make a start cut. But no excuses. So I'm gonna have to pare away some of that stuff right there. This is the problem with this saw. It's stuck. Or it's too big. Problem with the security of this workpiece. Next week, hopefully I'll have a vise on this bench so I can work vertically like this safely without moving the workpiece. So like rule number 1 of woodworking is secure your workpiece, right? If your workpiece is not secure, you're just not going to be safe. Also, your work will be crappy. I don't want that to happen. This line appears to be somewhat off. Won't be the first time, won't be the last either. I think I dropped a protractor. I made both those shots. Second one. Afraid to even test it. Wow, it's really loose. Yeah, that's not a great one right there. Yeah, far too loose. The pin ended up too small, so that one's gonna have to be redone. Other side is great, which sucks because that whole piece is gonna have to be done over again. I mean, you could try to shim it, put the box together. This is what I was trying to avoid. Somehow I ended up with too small a pin. So let's go back and do all that again, but let me show you the other side so you can see how it should fit. You can always make it smaller, you can't make it bigger. I measured that thing 4 times. That's how it should fit, right? Should be somewhat tight. That's the way it's supposed to fit. You see, I got 1 of 2 sides, so you make 1 mistake like that, and now I have to redo that entire board. I can either take it in 2 inches, or I could go back and do all of that pin cutting again. The other possibility is for me to take one of these one of the tail sides and bring it in, I don't know, a couple millimeters in. That's even trickier probably than just making a whole new piece. So put that aside for a second. Luckily, the pins are much easier than the tails to do, so I might bring you in here so you can see what I'm about to do. Welcome. Make sure you click that like button. Subscribe to the channel if this is your thing or you're trying to learn. So here's my other tail piece. If I want to match up, there's one of these pins that's a little small. I'm gonna have to bring in this pin, this tail probably. I could probably mark it. Looks like about 2 or 3 millimeters on each side. It's quite a bit bigger than that. So I'll bring it in. I'm gonna bring it in a millimeter or so on each side. Start with that. I'm gonna call this tail X, because this is the tail that I undercut, right? And I don't want to have to make a whole new piece. So now what I have to do is I have to adjust. Well, this is the pin X. This is going to be tail X, and I'm going to bring everything in a millimeter. It's like 1/8 of an inch, probably. Yeah. Keep the 60-degree angle. Oh, that might have been something to do with it. It was at 40 degrees. It might have been the one that fell to. So this is the special tail for that special pin that I miscut. to have this much room. That's close. So you see there's another line on the outside. That's where the tail should be. But since I miscut that pin, I have to make a special tail for that. Now that's the major part. Now all this has to come out. This is all waste. And this is the tricky part, but let me do the other side first. Make sure we don't cut outside that line. If we're going to, we want to cut it small, if anything. This line here, kind of tricky to see. Pinch it real bad. All this is waste. So I'm going to show you what I do to help get rid of this waste. Several techniques without blowing out, and I'll talk a little bit about blowout in a little bit, but I'm going to use a power tool here, so let me set down. microphone so it doesn't blow up if anybody's trying to relax. It doesn't mess with you. About right there. So I'm gonna put a little tape on here. So an inch. I'm gonna make a bunch of holes in this waist area so it's easier to chisel out. Little trick. Also going to do that from the front, or actually from the other side. You don't want to go through the wide part and end up going through part of your tail, so find the skinniest part of the back and go through that area. That can go all the way down, that's why the tape doesn't matter right there. Got several holes in here and perforated it pretty good. Alright. Let me show you what that looks like so you know. We'll do that to the other side too. I'll show you. So we have the tail laid out, right? And you see what has to be taken out of the tail. All this stuff that's shaded is waste. So what I did was I made drill holes through the waist area to help remove the waste without having to chisel so hard into the wood. There's another technique we have to do, which is to make a stop cut here, and then we're going to chisel from both sides alternately so we don't blow out or knock the wood out of one side and destroy our whole joint, right? I'm all about traditional, but like there are some things that, you know, you don't want to waste wood and you want to do things a little bit easier. Then there's some tricks. I'm going to do what I did with that other side here now. And they don't need to be in any exact place. It's just kind of all over the spot that you're going to be removing. Especially with a really hard wood like this ash. This is really hard. It's really hard on tools too. I'm going to move it over a wood surface so that when we chisel, there's something under it. Move you closer. Welcome if you just came. Right now I'm making single dovetails. I'm going to make a stop cut right here. That is a little cut so that we don't lose wood beyond this line right here. We don't want to chisel into this thing and then we're going to make a stop cut right here by pressing the chisel against the top of that line. Right, that's what we're going to do right there. And then we're going to start working at chiseling it out carefully. See those holes in there? That helps create a, it's got my orientation lock. I just wanted to show you all that real quick so you know what I'm doing over here. So stop cut and make sure it goes from side to side there. The first thing I do usually is I try to pare away a little bit of it by hand without using a mallet to see kind of where I'm at with it. It's not bad. Just like the lines, you want to kind of err on the side of, don't go up against the line until you know what your size is, kind of. You saw I ended up with a problem because I made a tail too small. I have to compensate. The other thing you can do is you can saw through your waist area with your saw also. That may be something I choose to do here in a few minutes. And those cuts don't matter as long as they stay within the lines. So I'm noticing that it's giving me trouble getting the waste out. So I'm going to take this saw and I'm just going to make several cuts carefully with my rip cutting side towards me here. And I make sure I'm real tight. This is kind of an uncomfortable angle to saw at. evenly through that waist area. And it doesn't matter if they're straight or not, as long as they're making a cut through the waist area. Saw is so dull it scares me. All right, now I've got a couple cuts in there. It should be easier to remove this waste now. Should come out in chunks. I'm going to put it back against the wood. We're going to find out if this altered side that I made for that one wrong pin, if it worked. We're going to flip it. We're going to go to the other side and pare away wood on the other side so we don't blow it out. Because if we go from one side only, the other side's going to split away from the wood. Blowout, that's what they call that. And since I haven't done so on this side yet, I'm going to make a stop cut. This is what I really use. I like to use my framing chisels for. Then you put it into the last line to do the next part of the line. Find it in the line to do it. But if you have a big chisel, it's a little easier. As soon as I get this piece of wood, we're going to flip it again. More just chisel out here. almost there. All right, there may be a few little pieces, but let's take a look at it. All right, looks like I got no blowout or very little blowout. So you get, if you hit the other side too hard, this will splinter off down here and look ugly. So that's why you have to keep flipping it going slowly. So if you don't, it'll take a whole piece of wood and split it down the grain, and nobody wants to look at that. So everything you do, do it slowly, carefully. Welcome. Click that like button for me. It costs you nothing and it helps support the channel. Some folks may find this valuable information. I think it is, and let me sell you on something real quick. So if you learn how to do a dovetail joint, then you can build pretty much any standard piece of furniture that you would need. A table, a chair. Well, a chair is a little more difficult. A bed. You know, you go and pay all this money for an IKEA bed when you can build a way more solid bed yourself with single dovetails and just basic joinery. And just think about unpacking that IKEA bed. All those little barrel nuts and all these pieces of hardware and pieces of wood that look like wood, but they're not wood, they're paper. I could not build a lower quality bed than what you buy at a Schul's, an IKEA. You know, anytime you go out and buy one of those beds, straight trash. That's what they are. And I have no problem saying that. Schul's could try to sponsor me. IKEA could try to sponsor me. The money may be attractive, but in honesty, this is the way to build your own furniture. Learn the joinery piece, and then you got it. It's really, you know, you don't have to be an expert on everything. Just learn a couple things really well. And like I said, there is no cheaper, trashier furniture than what you pay thousands of dollars for at those stores. This is tricky. This wants to come out in the wrong way here. So thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Appreciate you stopping through. You could be anywhere, but you chose to be here, and I appreciate that. Looks like I've almost finished this dovetail, so I'm going to check this because this is a special one. This tail is for a pin that I miscut, so it has to be just right for that pin. I measured in 1/8 of an inch, it looked like, because the pin was about 1/8 of an inch small on each side, so a total of about 1/4 of an inch. So we measured in, and I made a special tail for that. That's not something I've ever done before. Made a special tail. I just went back and redid it, usually. Called it Tail X. I got pin X over here. Let's try it out. I'm sure it won't fit at first. Nothing ever fits at first. Yeah, so it doesn't fit yet. Looks maybe just a tad bit too small. So all I got to do is just pare out a little bit of ways to get that to fit. It's better that it be a little bit small than be a little bit big. And it's better that these be a little bit big than a little bit small. So I'm going to go after this again. Take a little more out. One way to do that is to turn your chisel diagonal. and it kind of follows the plane, so you won't cut a new angle. So it's kind of hard for you to see from here, but I turn my chisel at a diagonal angle from the, and that will take out waste at a more even in amount. Little tricks. And try it again. Looks like it's still a little bit big. Yeah, significantly actually. So we'll take a little more out. It's close. Yeah, both sides still a little bit. Man, just about a hair or so. Yes. The key to woodworking is using the wood's strength to your advantage and the weakness to your advantage. So right now I'm taking the chisel and going down the grain to remove more waste. Maybe that was a little too much right there, but you could theoretically, take a huge heavy log and you stick one chisel in it, and if you hit it the right way, you could split the whole log that way, theoretically, But it's not the same if you hit the log from the side, right? So the idea is to use that principle to your advantage. And same with the building. These dovetails are using the strength of the wood to the advantage of the furniture, and they're using the weakness of the wood to be built. So I'm cutting dovetails using the weakest part of the wood to my advantage, using the grain direction and so forth. And then when I put it together, I'm using the strength to my advantage. Still a little bit large, the pin is. So I'm gonna have to pair right here. That's gonna have to come out. I really don't like to file that much because you don't get a straight edge from that. Alright, so a little more radical. Yeah, it's really close. Come to my live tomorrow, it's gonna be all chisel sharpening. These chisels badly need. This one's just been sharpened in the ash wood. That's what this type of wood is called. has dulled this chisel already. So they all need to be sharpened deliberately. All right, the shoulder's a bit high on here too. So it is only the right size for this side. So it's gonna have to be where this pin goes. I'm thinking I don't want to take too much out, but I think that this, I gotta take like another millimeter out of that side. So close, so close. I do think that these shoulders on this pin probably have to come down a little bit. Maybe the shoulders get in the way. Just about to sit in there. so if I was to force it in there now, it would definitely snap that dovetail. So I just got to make a few adjustments to this pin. Had something go wrong there, which was part of that pin popped off when I was trying to pare it down. Probably a result of having dull tools. And let's see, we're starting to fit now. Again, if I was to hammer this down in there, you would see this split right down the middle because it's putting too much outward tension on this wood. It can't handle that, so it has to come down a bit more. I took a chunk off that edge. Put that down. So it's very close. Closer. I still think if I was to push this down in there, it would split. So you have to kind of keep that in mind. It should fit snug, but not tight. You see, it doesn't want to go down. So I got to keep working it until it goes down. Or I got to work the tail side, or I got to work the pin side. So maybe I work the tail side a little bit here. So close, so close. That sound means I'm stripping away a thread of wood at the side, so be careful doing that. See how you don't even have to do that much to it? That's joinery right there, man. When you can just set it in there and it'll hold itself at a 90-degree angle. No screws, no staples, no nails, just wood on wood. And once you learn that, then screws and nails and stuff like that make extra secure what you already secured using joinery. So still a bit on the tight side. getting it in, you can't get it out. I'm almost there with that. And we want to see what it looks like when I fit that side to this and then the other side. So we got almost our whole box done. This I can't just quite yet. That's the way it really should fit though, right there. I think that's the tail for that one, if not the other one. Or maybe the other one. Yeah, no, it was that one. So we got dovetail here. We got dovetail here. My drawer is about 3/4 finished. Now I got to make a 2-pin side over there. I got to cut this tail out, right? And then adjust them, and then glue it up, and then make a handle for it. So what you're looking at now is it's getting there. So you see, it's a single dovetail. There is a woodworker's warm up where you take a piece of wood and you cut a single dovetail in 5 minutes. I've tried that for years. It's really difficult. So what I have here now is I got about 3/4 of this box, which is going to be a drawer for this workbench over here. 16 inches deep and 21 inches wide. And I'm going to build some runners so that it can slide in and out. So I will continue to go as long as I got y'all here, and I will work on that next piece. Give me 1 second. Get a sip of water. Welcome. If you just came here, make sure you click that like button. Doesn't Doesn't cost you a dime, doesn't cost you a penny, and it supports the channel. It helps get the channel out to the demographic that it should be with. Of course, I would love to think I was for everybody, but I realize this is not for everybody. YouTube is about niches. So, if you could click the like button, if woodcraft is your thing, or you want to learn about it, and click that like button. I'm going to disconnect these pieces carefully, and I'm going to work on this tail. Once I've got this tail kind of done, that last pin side is going to be easy. The pins are much easier to cut than the tails are. Tails are much more delicate and difficult. I chipped a little piece off of this tail. I'm not proud of that. But you know, aim for perfection. And if you end up with mediocrity, it's not that bad. I might not even be able to disconnect this, it's so tight. Only thing I gotta remember that X is here because that is a special pin for that side. I've got my holes drilled in here. If you missed this part, I laid out my tail and I drilled some holes in it to help remove the waste. Now the one thing I want to do is I want to saw vertically through that spot too, all the waste area, so that it lets the waste come out a little easier. Think of the best angle to saw. Yeah, let's do that. Sorry about the dogs. My saw. Make sure my axe is in there good. Have to fix that hole too. All right, I'm going to make some vertical cuts and make sure I stop at this stop point right here. Don't go any lower than that. And with this hard of wood, ash is not something I would choose to work with again. I had this stock around for a while. But with this kind of wood, especially, you need these vertical cuts. It's stubborn. It doesn't want to come out, so you have to give yourself every advantage that you can. So you're working with ash or oak or maple, cherry, those type of woods. I would normally, if I had a better razor saw, I would do some more cuts, but I just don't. I really hate. I don't care for this saw. Also, you can do this with a bandsaw or a jigsaw. No reason it should pull the whole table. All right, so I got about 5 vertical cuts in there. I'm gonna actually go through here. I might even drill a few more holes just to make sure that I got a good advantage in taking that mess out. I'm gonna use a bigger bit. Since some of y'all don't like power tools, I'll set that there. And luckily that didn't break away too far. All right, we'll stick with that. So we don't want to maul it up. Now that we've kind of pulverized that waste area, we're going to remove pare out the waste. So that doesn't have to be pretty. I just got a bunch of holes and cuts through the waste area here so that I can remove it easier. And we're just going to do what we did before. Make sure wood is over wood when we're chiseling out waste. Wonder how sharp this chisel is. Not very. No, it ain't worth it. Yeah, next time I do my log, we're doing tool. We're gonna do sharpening. I'll fix my chisel rack. Making a stop cut along the top of that line. And I follow my cut. I put the edge of the chisel on the edge of the line and continue the line like that. Like I said before, I usually start by trying to pare it out by hand and see what I can get out. Two hands on the chisel. Secure the workpiece. All right, now I'm gonna flip it so that I don't get blowout. I want to kind of chisel towards the middle. Stop cut. That stop cut stops it from breaking away. Like when I chisel it up like that, it's gonna stop right there instead of going down the grain and messing up your whole board. Y'all probably heard my stomach growl right there. And we flip it again. Ain't no blowout, that's a good sign. We're doing it nice and slow and steady. As frustrating as it is with this kind of wood. There we go. Let's break about that piece. So close. So close. This is where you start making mistakes and doing things the fast way. Can't tell you how many pieces of furniture I've built where I've gotten a long way through it, done everything beautifully, and then I rushed something and I just start the whole thing over again. And we're not talking about minutes, we're talking about days worth of work. Seems like almost every hobby I pick is like that. Haste makes waste type hobby. ADHD thing, you pick something that you're not good at naturally not inclined to paying attention for long periods of time. And you pick something that makes you have to pay attention for long periods of time because you like it. I always like to look at a brain surgeon and see what they do, you know. These guys that can pay attention and have situational awareness for 8 hours while they work on someone's brain, you know. Pretty amazing. Almost done with this. And I am going to wrap it up with this last joint here because my phone is dying and my mic is dying. So I'm going to have to, oh, apparently my clamp is dying too. But I think this one looks nice, so I'm sure we will have a good fit to start out with here. I'm just kind of putting the finishing touches on it. The shoulder is a little bit high. And where the corners meet, it's really important that it's clean there, because when you put the pin in, if the corner, you'll look at it and say, oh, that's perfect, but you put the pin in and it doesn't feel like it fits right, it's because your corners aren't straight. You've left waste in the corners. So cleaning out those corners properly and making sure they're sharp at the corners, well, not sharp, but you know, there's a good angle there and you haven't left a rounded edge. That's kind of like one of the tricks that makes the difference between like a nice looking and fitting dovetail and one that doesn't fit well, doesn't look good. And I'm by far and not even close to the expert on dovetails or woodworking. I'm an amateur, you know, but I've done this a long time. Made a lot of pieces of furniture like this. X goes with this, and that's a really tight one. Or well, it's tight when it gets down in there. Now, and I like that other one better. That's a little bit tight. That's probably the one I worked right there. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and put these in place. See how that almost gives you a 90-degree angle? I so very much appreciate all of you being here tonight. Make sure you click that like button before you go. It doesn't cost you anything. It helps YouTube find my target audience. And please do be back. I will be back tomorrow evening, 5:30. Although that doesn't look like a 90-degree angle. It is a good 90-degree angle. It's the angle of the camera, I think. That makes it look like it's not. So thank you so much for coming. Drop a like, drop a comment. Make sure you participate in the chat. Check out bettybakercandles.com. It's our candle company. And I will see all of you hopefully back tomorrow, a little earlier than today, 5:30. And we'll do some more of this and some chisel sharpening. And I do appreciate you being here. I love you all. Hug someone you love. Appreciate you. Take care.